The lukewarm potato salad is a monument to obligation. Aunt Carol's voice, sharp and saccharine, slices through the murmur of forced family cheer. Well, look who it is. Still floating, is she? I was just saying to Brenda, she still has nothing really solid going on there, I hear. Such a shame. All that education, her eyes, small and bright like a bird's, flick over me, a casual dismissal that lands like a punch to the sternum. I feel the familiar heat rise in my cheeks, the tightening in my chest. Around us, the family reunion buzzes on, oblivious. Uncles laugh too loudly, children shriek. The clink of ice in plastic cups is the afternoon's soundtrack. But in my little bubble of space, Carol's words hang heavy, thick with years of similar pronouncements, each one a tiny chisel chipping away at something I've tried so hard to protect. I manage a tight smile, the kind that doesn't reach my eyes. Just trying to keep busy, Aunt Carol, I murmur. She pats my arm, a gesture that's meant to be comforting but feels like a brand. Well, dear, some of us are busy doing, others are busy, trying. Her smile is pure, unadulterated pity, and it's the most infuriating thing I've ever seen. Little does she know, the entire foundation of her smug pronouncements is about to crumble, live, in front of everyone. The stock market doesn't wait for family reunions. And my nothing going on is about to make a very loud noise. If you've ever had that one voice, the one that tries to shrink you down to their size, the one that measures your worth by their own limited ruler, tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this is your first time here, please subscribe. It means more than you know to share these moments, these battles fought in plain sight. This isn't the first battlefield Aunt Carol has chosen. Far from it. My childhood memories are peppered with her helpful suggestions, her concerned inquiries. Are you sure that art class is a good use of time, dear? What about something practical? Or later, that little writing hobby of yours, it's sweet, but what about a real career? It was never outright cruelty, always couched in that syrupy concern that made protesting seem churlish, ungrateful. My parents, bless them, always preached polite tolerance. She means well, honey, my mom would say, after Carol had spent an entire Thanksgiving dinner dissecting my unconventional life choices. But I knew, even then, that meaning well and doing good were often miles apart. Her version of well was a narrow, paved road leading to a sensible job, a sensible marriage, sensible children, a life laid out like a sensible, beige carpet. My path, apparently, was a rambling dirt track through a bewildering forest. The startup wasn't born out of a desire to spite Aunt Carol, not initially. It was born from a frustration so deep it felt like a part of my own DNA. I was working a sensible job back then, marketing for a mid-sized corporation. The pay was decent, the hours predictable. I had a dental plan. By all external measures, including Carol's, I was finally on track, but inside, I felt like I was suffocating in beige. The inefficiency, the bureaucracy, the way good ideas went to die in committee meetings, it was a slow, soul-crushing grind. And I saw a gap, a problem nobody was solving in a way that made sense to me. It was a niche, almost invisible to the corporate behemoths, but to the people it affected, it was a constant, nagging pain point. The idea started as a whisper, a what-if scribbled on a napkin during a particularly soul-destroying quarterly review. What if there was a platform that could connect these disparate needs, streamline this clunky process, give power back to the users instead of the gatekeepers? The whisper grew louder, an insistent hum that I couldn't ignore. I started moonlighting, coding in my tiny apartment after long days at the office, fueled by lukewarm coffee and a growing obsession. My living room became a warren of whiteboards covered in frantic diagrams, sticky notes colonizing every surface. Sleep became a luxury. My social life dwindled to occasional, guilt-ridden texts. I was living a double life, the sensible marketer by day, the frantic, hopeful innovator by night. Aunt Carol, during a Christmas gathering that year, cornered me by the eggnog. "You're looking a bit peaky, dear," she'd said, her eyes scanning me with an almost forensic intensity. "Burning the candle at both ends with that computer thing you do?" The dismissal in her voice was casual, almost an afterthought, but it was there. My computer thing, as if it were a slightly embarrassing rash. The real inciting incident, the one that shoved me off the cliff of sensibility, wasn't a single pronouncement from Carol, but rather a culmination, a perfect storm of her quiet disdain and my own burgeoning belief. It happened at my cousin Mark's engagement party. Mark was Carol's golden boy, an investment banker with a shiny car and an even shinier fiancé. The party was at a golf club, the kind of place where the air smells of money and cut grass. I was trying to make small talk, feeling acutely out of place in my slightly too old dress, when I overheard Carol talking to one of her cronies, a woman with lacquered hair and a similar aura of judgmental benevolence. "Such a bright girl, really," Carol was saying, her voice carrying across the manicured lawn. But no direction. Still flitting from one thing to another. No real prospects, you know? It's a worry. My Mark, now, he always knew what he wanted. Her words weren't meant for me, but they hit me like a physical blow. No real prospects. It wasn't just about Carol anymore. It was about the box they were all trying to put me in, the narrative they'd written for me. And in that moment, standing there with a lukewarm glass of cheap champagne in my hand, something snapped. A cold, clear anger, followed by an equally cold, clear resolve. I wasn't going to flit anymore. I was going to fly, or crash and burn so spectacularly that no one could ever accuse me of not trying. The next Monday, I walked into my sensible job, tendered my resignation, and cashed out my meager 401k. The fear was a living thing in my throat, but the exhilaration was a tidal wave. This wasn't just a project anymore. This was it. My computer thing was about to become my everything. The early days were a blur of cheap coffee, cheaper takeout, and the kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones. My co-founder, Ben, a genius coder with the social skills of a startled badger, moved into my spare bedroom, which we promptly converted into our headquarters. It smelled permanently of stale pizza and desperation. We bootstrapped. Every penny from my 401k went into servers, software licenses, and the occasional grocery run that consisted mostly of instant ramen and economy-sized bags of generic cereal. My credit cards groaned under the strain. Sleep was a snatched hour here, two there, often on the threadbare couch, laptop still open on my chest. Aunt Carol's voice became a kind of internal antagonist. When a crucial piece of code broke for the 10th time, her imagined sigh of "I told you so" echoed in my head. When our first attempt to secure seed funding was met with polite, but firm, rejections, I could almost hear her telling Brenda, "Still playing with that little website, is she?" Bless her heart, my parents, though supportive, were visibly worried. "Are you sure about this, honey?" my mom would ask, her voice laced with anxiety during our brief, weekly calls. There's no shame in going back to a regular job, but there was for me. The shame would be in letting Carol and all the other quiet doubters be right. We had small victories, tiny pinpricks of light in the overwhelming dark. Our first 10 users, who weren't friends or family. The first piece of genuinely enthusiastic feedback. The day Ben fixed a bug that had plagued us for weeks, and we celebrated with a $20 bottle of champagne, drunk straight from the bottle. These moments were lifelines. But for every step forward, it felt like we were pushed 2 steps back. Our user interface was clunky. Our marketing budget was non-existent. We were just 2 people trying to build a skyscraper with toothpicks and hope. I remember one particularly bleak Tuesday morning, staring at a bank balance that was dangerously close to zero, the eviction notice for our tiny rented office space tucked under my keyboard. The weight of it all, the sheer, unadulterated terror of failure, pressed down on me. I thought of Carol's smug, pitying smile, and a new kind of determination, harder and colder, began to solidify in my gut. This wasn't just about an idea anymore. This was a fight. The challenges kept mounting, like waves trying to swamp our little raft. A rival company, better funded and with a slicker marketing team, launched a similar product. Their press releases were everywhere. We were still trying to figure out how to afford printer ink. Ben, usually stoic, Started talking about looking for real jobs if things didn't turn around soon. I couldn't blame him. He had student loans, a family that depended on him. I had this burning, all-consuming thing that was eating my life. There was a betrayal. Too, small but stinging. An intern we'd hired, someone I'd mentored and trusted, took our core concepts and pitched them to a competitor. It was a rookie mistake on our part, not having the right NDAs in place, too trusting, too naive. The sting of that betrayal cut deep, making me question my own judgment. Family gatherings became an exercise in deflection. "So, how's the business going?" Uncle Frank would ask, his eyes carefully avoiding mine. I'd offer vague, upbeat answers, but I could feel Carol's presence, even when she wasn't in the room. Her skepticism was a tangible force, relayed through concerned glances from my mother or awkward questions from cousins who'd clearly been briefed. Carol was just saying, "It must be so hard, trying to get something like that off the ground," my cousin Susan said once, her voice dripping with insincere sympathy. "She's really worried about you worried or hoping for failure." The lines blurred. The search for funding was a special kind of hell. We polished our pitch deck until it gleamed. I bought a new, slightly too tight suit on a credit card, trying to look the part of a CEO. We pitched to angel investors, to venture capitalists, to anyone who would give us 15 minutes. The rejections were relentless. "Interesting idea, but the market's too small, you're under-resourced, come back when you have more traction." Each no was a body blow. I'd walk out of those sleek, impersonal boardrooms, the polite smiles of the investors burning into my back, and have to fight the urge to just curl up on the sidewalk and weep. There were days I subsisted on sheer, stubborn pride. The thought of facing Aunt Carol if this all went south was a more potent motivator than any business plan. I was isolated, running on fumes, the sheer weight of responsibility threatening to crush me. This little computer thing was demanding my soul, and I wasn't sure I had enough left to give. Then came the meeting with Eleanor Vance. She was a legend in the tech investment world, known for her sharp intellect and her even sharper tongue. Getting a meeting with her was like getting an audience with the Pope. Our pitch was on a Tuesday, rainy and miserable. We were running on 3 hours of sleep and a shared, stale croissant. I expected another polite dismissal. Instead, Eleanor listened, her eyes narrowed, occasionally interrupting with a question so precise it felt like a surgical strike. At the end of our allotted 30 minutes, she leaned back in her chair. "Your tech is solid," she said, her voice devoid of warmth. "Your market analysis is optimistic. Your team is 2 exhausted people who look like they haven't seen daylight in a month." I braced for the no, but, she continued, a tiny smile playing on her lips, "There's something here. I like underdogs. And you," she pointed a perfectly manicured finger at me, "you have fire. I'll give you a chance. But my terms will be brutal." The terms were indeed brutal. A smaller investment than we'd hoped for, a larger equity stake for her, and milestones that seemed impossible to achieve. But it was a lifeline. It was validation from someone who mattered, someone whose opinion wasn't colored by familial pity or condescension. That investment forced a shift. We hired a small, dedicated team. We moved into a slightly less depressing office. We started gaining traction, real traction. Users were signing up, and not just our friends. The press started to notice. But more importantly, something shifted in me. The initial anger, the desperate need to prove Carol wrong, began to recede, replaced by a deeper, quieter focus. It wasn't just about defiance anymore. It was about building something lasting, something I truly believed in. Eleanor's belief in me, however conditional, had also shown me that my own belief was the most critical ingredient. I still had Carol's voice in my head, but it was fainter now, drowned out by the hum of servers and the excited chatter of my growing team. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, it felt like we might actually have a chance. Just as things started looking up, the floor fell out from under us. Our main competitor, the well-funded one, launched a vicious price war. They slashed their rates, offered unsustainable discounts, clearly trying to bleed us dry. Our growth stalled. Panic began to set in. Then, Our lead engineer, a critical part of our tiny team, was poached by that same competitor, lured away by a salary we couldn't possibly match and a bonus that felt like a deliberate insult. It was a body blow. We were scrambling, working 18-hour days just to keep the platform stable, let alone innovate or fight back. The money from Eleanor was dwindling fast. Payroll loomed, a monstrous, hungry beast. I remember staring at the numbers one night, the red ink swimming before my eyes, and the sheer, overwhelming urge to just quit, to walk away, to admit defeat. It would be so easy. I could get another sensible job. I could pay off my debts. I could sleep for a week. My mother called, her voice tight with worry. "Honey, Kara was asking about you again. She heard things aren't going so well. She said maybe it's time to reconsider, Carol." Of course. Her network of concerned informants was clearly working overtime. The thought of her satisfaction, her quiet "I knew it," was like acid in my stomach. I wanted to scream. Instead, I took a deep breath. "Things are tough, Mom," I admitted, "but we're not done yet." I hung up the phone, my hand shaking. The office was dark, save for the glow of Ben's monitor. He looked up, his face etched with exhaustion. "We're running on fumes, boss," he said, his voice flat. "I don't know how much longer we can do this." All the fight seemed to drain out of me. Maybe Carol was right. Maybe I was just flitting, destined for nothing solid. The weight of it was crushing. I felt like I was drowning. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, the city lights a distant, indifferent glitter. Giving up felt like dying. It felt like letting Carol win, letting every single doubter win. Sometime before dawn, a different kind of feeling began to stir. Not hope exactly. More like a cold, hard rage. A refusal to be broken. If we were going down, we were going down fighting, with everything we had left. The next morning, I called an all-hands meeting. There were only 5 of us left, including me and Ben. I laid it all out, the dire financial situation, the competitors' tactics, the slim chances. "I can't ask you to stay," I said, my voice hoarse. "If you want to leave, I understand." No hard feelings, no one moved. Then Sarah, our newest, youngest marketing assistant, spoke up. "I believe in this," she said, her voice surprisingly firm. "I believe in what we're building." "I'm not going anywhere." One by one, they echoed her. Ben just nodded, a small, tired smile on his face. "Guess we're in this till the bitter end, boss." That was the turning point. Not a brilliant idea, not a sudden influx of cash, but the raw courage of that tiny, battered team. We rallied. We worked with a desperate, ferocious energy. Ben pulled off a coding miracle, streamlining our backend in a way that drastically cut our server costs and improved performance. Sarah launched a guerrilla marketing campaign, clever and audacious, that started getting us noticed by the right people, the niche communities who truly needed us. And then a call came. An investment bank. They'd been watching us. They'd seen our resilience, our dedicated user base, the way we were fighting back against a much larger competitor. They saw potential. They started talking about an IPO, an initial public offering, taking the company public. It seemed insane. We were still struggling to make payroll. But they were serious. The due diligence process was grueling, invasive. Every decision, every line of code, every penny spent was scrutinized. There were days I thought it would break us. But the thought of it, not just surviving, but succeeding on a scale I'd never dared to dream of, it was a powerful intoxicant. We were going for it. The fight wasn't just for survival anymore. It was for the championship. And now here I am, back at the family reunion. The sun is starting to dip, casting long shadows across the lawn. The air is thick with the smell of barbecue and slightly wilted coleslaw. I've navigated the usual gauntlet of relatives, the well-meaning aunts, the boisterous uncles, the cousins comparing mortgages and children's soccer scores. I'm on my second lukewarm lemonade, trying to project an aura of calm I absolutely do not feel. My phone is set to vibrate in my pocket, a direct line to Ben, who's at a command center that sounds far more glamorous than our slightly less depressing but still not glamorous office. The bell is due to ring in New York any minute. Aunt Carol materializes at my elbow, as if summoned by my anxiety. Her smile is a masterpiece of condescending sweetness. There you are, dear. I was just saying to Brenda. She gestures vaguely towards a woman with an impressive perm who is currently engrossed in a plate of brownies. How nice it is that you still make time for family, even with, well, whatever it is you're doing these days. The pause is deliberate, weighted. Still floating, is she? She stage whispers to Brenda, loud enough for half the patio to hear. Nothing really solid going on there, I hear. Such a shame. All that education. Brenda nods sagely, mouth full of brownie. Kids today, she mumbles. The words land, familiar barbs. But today, they don't sting as much. Today, they feel distant, almost comical. I offer that same tight smile. Just trying to keep busy, Aunt Carol. Well, dear, she pats my arm again, that infuriatingly patronizing gesture. Some of us are busy doing, others are busy trying. My phone vibrates. A single, sharp buzz. Ben's prearranged signal. It's done. Across the lawn, someone has the portable TV tuned to a financial news network. Usually it's just background noise at these gatherings, something the men vaguely watch while talking about sports. But today, the anchor's voice suddenly cuts through the chatter, louder, more insistent. And we have breaking news from the tech sector. A stunning debut today for Innovate Solutions, ticker symbol INOV, which began trading on the Nasdaq just moments ago. Opening at $22 a share, it's already surged to $35 in early trading, far exceeding analysts' expectations. This cloud-based workflow management company, founded by CEO Catherine Miller. My name. My company. On national television. A hush falls over the patio. Heads turn. My cousin Mark, Carol's golden boy, actually lowers his beer. The camera cuts to footage of the Nasdaq opening bell, a small group of people, my team, Ben front and center, grinning like a maniac, ringing the bell. And then, a picture of me, a professional headshot I barely remember taking. Miller, a first-time CEO, bootstrapped the company from her living room. I don't look at Carol. I don't need to. But I can feel the shift in the atmosphere. It's like all the air has been sucked out of her immediate vicinity. Slowly, deliberately, I turn my head. Aunt Carol is frozen. Her wine glass is halfway to her lips. Her mouth is slightly open. The color has drained from her face, leaving her looking deflated. Her eyes, usually so sharp and assessing, are wide, fixed on the television screen with a kind of horrified disbelief. The piece of cheese she was about to eat has slipped from her cracker and lies forgotten on her plate. Someone, Uncle Frank, I think, lets out a low whistle. Well, I'll be, he mutters. Catherine Miller, huh? That's our Kathy. My mother is beside me, her hand gripping my arm, tears in her eyes. Oh, honey, she whispers, her voice thick with emotion. I had no idea. I mean, I knew you were working hard, but... I look back at Aunt Carol. She's still staring at the screen, as if willing it to say something different. Then, slowly, her head turns towards me. Her expression is a chaotic mess of shock, confusion, and something that might be dawning, horrified comprehension. The smugness is gone. Utterly and completely gone. Replaced by a gaping void. Vindication is a strange, hollow drum. It beats loudly for a moment, then fades. But this is something else. This is watching a carefully constructed reality shatter into a million pieces. Carol recovers, or tries to, with a visible effort that's almost painful to watch. She clears her throat, her voice a reedy imitation of its usual confident tone. Oh, well. That's certainly something, isn't it? She attempts a smile, but it's a grotesque parody, a rictus of forced nonchalance. A little internet thing, I suppose. They come and go so quickly these days, don't they? Her eyes dart around, seeking affirmation, seeking to reestablish her authority, her narrative. But no one is looking at her. They're looking at me. Some with awe, some with dawning respect, some, like Cousin Mark, with a complex expression I can't quite decipher. Part shock, part envy, part grudging admiration. The moment hangs there, ripe. This is it. My father, bless his diplomatic heart, starts to say something anodyne, something to smooth over the gaping awkwardness. But I raise a hand, just slightly. Actually, Dad, I say, my voice calm, carrying clearly in the sudden quiet. Several conversations halt. More heads turn my way. I can feel Carol stiffen beside me. It's been quite a journey. I continue, letting my gaze drift over the assembled family, landing briefly on my beaming parents, on Ben's proud and slightly tearful parents who've also joined the reunion, and then, finally, lingering on Aunt Carol. And I have to say, I pause, letting the silence stretch. A special thank you is in order. Carol's eyes narrow. She looks wary, confused. Perhaps she thinks I'm about to offer an olive branch, to be magnanimous in victory. To those who consistently reminded me how little they expected, I say, my voice still even, still pleasant. Aunt Carol. I turn to her directly now, a polite, almost gentle smile on my face. Your regular pronouncements that I had nothing solid going on, that I was just floating, they were particularly memorable. A small gasp escapes someone. Carol's face, which had regained a touch of color, pales again. Her attempted smile vanishes. They served, I continue, my voice acquiring a sharper edge, as a unique kind of fuel. A very specific motivation to ensure that what I was building was, indeed, very, very solid. I let that sink in. So, in a way, Aunt Carol, I share this success with your doubt. It seems even negativity can be a powerful catalyst for innovation, don't you think? The silence that follows is absolute. Deafening. You could hear a pin drop on the grass. Carol is staring at me, her mouth working silently, like a fish out of water. She's completely, utterly blindsided. Not by the IPO, that was a shock, certainly, but by this. By me, using her own words, her own petty dismissals, and turning them into a public acknowledgement of her role in my success. An inverse role, a role she never intended, a role that now paints her not as a concerned matriarch, but as a small-minded, short-sighted detractor. No one speaks. No one moves. Then my mother, bless her fierce, protective heart, puts an arm around my shoulder and says, very clearly, we are so incredibly proud of you, Catherine, for everything you've built and for the incredible woman you've become. The spell is broken. A murmur of agreement ripples through the family. Congratulations erupt, genuine and enthusiastic this time. People are crowding around, asking questions, offering handshakes and hugs. Aunt Carol? She doesn't say a word. She just stands there, diminished, her earlier pronouncements now echoing in the space as hollow, foolish things. Her carefully cultivated image as the family's astute observer, its arbiter of common sense, has been shattered, live and in person, not just by my success, but by my refusal to let her define me or my journey, even in its triumphant conclusion. She looks smaller, older, and for the first time, completely irrelevant. The gun she'd been pointing at my ambition for years had, in the end, only backfired spectacularly on herself. That, I realize, is the bigger win. Not the money, not the Nasdaq bell, but this moment of quiet, irrefutable truth, spoken in my own voice. The rest of the reunion passes in a blur of surreal congratulations and hastily revised opinions. Carol retreats to a corner with Brenda, her voice a low, agitated murmur, no longer the confident pronouncements of before. She avoids my eye for the rest of the evening. When it's time to leave, she offers a curt, mumbled good night, without looking at me. It's a far cry from the pitying pats and saccharine advice. The power dynamic has shifted, irrevocably. In the days and weeks that follow, the ripples spread. Some relatives call, their voices laced with newfound respect, asking for advice, or just wanting to bask in the reflected glow. Others, the ones who always quietly supported me, are genuinely thrilled. My parents are walking on air. The family narrative has been officially and very publicly rewritten. Success is strange. It's validating, undeniably. The long hours, the sacrifices, the terrifying risks, they paid off. My computer thing is now a respected company. My name is in headlines, not whispers of concern. But the triumph isn't the uncomplicated joy I might have once imagined. It's quieter, more complex. The real victory wasn't the IPO. It was surviving the journey to get there, holding on to my vision when everyone, including myself at times, doubted it. It was realizing that Aunt Carol's opinion and the opinions of all the other Carols in the world only have as much power as you give them. The anger I once felt towards her has mostly faded, replaced by a kind of weary understanding. She is who she is. But I am no longer defined by her limitations. My path is my own, not a reaction to her, but a creation of my own will, my own struggles, my own small, hard-won victories. There's a bittersweetness to it all, this new landscape of success. The pressure is different now, the challenge is larger, but the foundation is solid, built not just with code and capital, but with resilience and a hard-earned belief in myself. And perhaps, just perhaps, a younger cousin, watching all this unfold, will feel a little braver about chasing their own unconventional dreams. That, more than any stock ticker, feels like something truly solid. Success tastes different when you've fought for every inch of it, especially when the whispers said you'd never make it, that you had nothing going on. If this story found a piece of you, I'd love to hear your version in the comments. Let me know what mountains you're climbing, or what whispers you're trying to silence. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. And if you haven't already, subscribing really does help bring more stories like this to life. Thanks for being here.